A very good afternoon and a warm welcome to KBC Lunchtime News. My name is Serfine Achieng and our sign language interpreter is Lucy Mwaura. It is exactly 7 days into the fourth month of the year 2020. A day when the retired Archbishop Ndingi Mwana was laid to rest just a few minutes ago. It is a burial that took place just a day after 4 counties in the country were placed under partial lockdown. I'm talking about Nairobi and 3 coastal counties of Mombasa, Kilifi and Malindi. We will also, Kilifi and Kwale counties, I beg your pardon. We will be linking up with our reporter in the coastal region just to give us details of this particular story. And that is happening right now as we speak to my colleague Michael Mwandiga, who is currently just about to have an interview with the Coast Regional Coordinator, John Elungata, just to elaborate on how movement is going to be restricted in the 3 counties in the coastal region and what the residents of the coastal region have to say with this new directive. Mwandiga.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, Serfine Achieng. We are coming to you live from Mombasa, from the office of the Coast Regional Commissioner, that is Mr. John Elungata. Of course, he is taking us up to speed on yesterday's President directive regarding restriction of movements of people across, that is from the 3 counties, that is Kilifi County, Mombasa County, and Kwale County, and of course Nairobi Metropolitan. But strictly is talking about the Mombasa restrictions of movement. He just brings us up to speed on what will be happening and what is expected and how people are expected to conduct themselves. Welcome, Mr. Elungata.
I think largely we are ready to implement the President's directive on the closure of those 3 counties. And like we said, we have our roadblocks ready. And I think that by tomorrow, about 7 p.m., we don't expect to see anybody crossing over from Kilifi into Mombasa or Mombasa into Kilifi or Mombasa into Kwale or Kwale into Kilifi. I think this is what we intend to do and we are ready for that.
Okay. Yeah, and currently, sir, maybe for those who are not understanding, when is it taking effect? Is it from tomorrow evening or starting when the curfew ends at 8? That is on Thursday.
Ideally, it's on, is it tomorrow from 7 p.m.? Because you know that's when the curfew starts. And once the curfew ends at 5 a.m., that kicks in. So it's like, begins tomorrow at 7 p.m. and we want to start implementing it at that hour.
Okay. And for those who are on essential services?
For those who are engaged in providing critical services to both government and the public, supermarkets, shops, pharmacies, people selling petroleum, banks, and so on, we have special allowance for them to try to move about, to travel. But I think the confusion regarding whether people will be able to operate within their counties or not, we are saying that the only thing that we're prohibiting is anybody moving from one county to the other. That is Kilifi to Mombasa, Mombasa to Kilifi, Mombasa to Kwale, Kwale to Mombasa, and so on, and outside of the boundaries of these 3 counties. But within the county, people go about their usual business without any issue.
Okay, and there was the issue about roadblocks. So many people were not maybe well understanding the issue on roadblocks.
That was an interim measure for yesterday and today, just to do a dry run on what we intend to do from Wednesday. So I think nobody should be worried about the roadblocks. Roadblocks are not meant to harass anybody. They're just meant to enable us to implement government directives.
Well, I thank you so much, sir, for your time on this interview and the elaboration of giving the people. Of course, that was Coast Regional Commissioner, Mr. John Elungata, who was taking us up to speed regarding the directives given by the President on restrictions of movements in the 3 counties, that is Mombasa, Kwale, and Kilifi, and of course the Nairobi Metropolitan. And that is what we have for now from Coast Regional Commissioner's Office. Michael Mwandiga, coming to you live from Mombasa, and back to you, Serfine Achieng in Nairobi.
Thank you so much, Michael Mwadiga, for that update. And of course, that directive that they have been discussing is supposed to be taking effect tomorrow in the 3 coastal counties, exactly 7 p.m. And it began yesterday from 7 p.m., the 6th of April 2020, in the Nairobi metropolitan area. So from yesterday all the way to the next 21 days, in case you had not left or you're planning to come to Nairobi, that plan has been interrupted courtesy of the directive that was issued by President Uhuru Kenyatta yesterday as efforts to mitigate the spread of coronavirus. Now, more news concerning how we are doing in terms of containing this spread. It was confusion as the partial lockdown within the Nairobi metropolitan area took effect, with commuters suffering the brunt. President Uhuru Kenyatta had on Monday announced new stiffer measures meant to contain the spread of COVID-19, declaring Nairobi, Mombasa, Kilifi and Kwale as hotspots, placing them under partial lockdown. Here is Gladys Mungai with a report.
Road barriers and stranded commuters characterized the first day of partial lockdown in Nairobi metropolitan as police executed orders denying entry and exit of residents into Nairobi metropolis and its environs. The order bringing transport to a halt, forcing many to go back to areas of origin. At Joska near Kamulu, commuters were caught off guard as the directive took effect at 7 p.m. on Monday evening.
Tutarudi saa, tutarudi wapi na kumefungwa? Ni sawa waturuhusu saa hii tuingie kwa manyumba tujiquarantine huko, hata si tupumzike.
Waturuhusu tupite ndio tuingie kwa manyumba kabla saa haijakuwa mbaya. Sasa itabidi tukae tu kwa nyumba sasa. Tukae tu kwa nyumba, tukae hapo. Sawa.
Tupatia masiku angalau tujipange ndio tujue vile tutaishi, kwa sababu wengi wetu wa Kenya unajua tunaishi hand to mouth.
In Limuru, Deputy County Commissioner Charles Mukere, who led the inspection, said no one will be spared in the implementation of the directive meant to reduce the spread of coronavirus.
Toka Kimende. Sasa kufika hapa nikaambiwa gari haziendi. Mizigo yangu iko Kangemi yote, machungwa, mandizi, nyanya, vitunguu, na nimezaweka kwa gari. Na hakuna gari ya kutoka hapa kwenda Kangemi. Sasa tunauliza, si president wetu tuhurumie, utuambie venye unataka. Kama ni kupumzika, tupumzike kwa nyumba for 3 weeks. Utupe chakula.
Sasa ni kazi tutabadilisha sasa. Tuwe tunafika engineer Nyahururu sasa. Sababu kazi imeharibika.
Magari ya chakula ya mizigo ambayo kwenda kujenga biashara tunaruhusu waende, kwa sababu hatuwezi nchi yetu kwa sababu ya hiyo, lakini safari za ambazo hazina msingi, hazieleweki ndio tunajaribu kuzuia.
Most travelers plying Nairobi Mombasa highway had to eat the humble pie and turn back at police roadblocks erected at Lukenya to enforce government directives. Only goods and officers offering essential services were given a chance to pass.
Kutoka huko jana saa 2 kutoka Kakamega. Tumekuja na gari kufika Nairobi, tukapita mzuri. Kufika Athi River, gari kaharibika. Tukahitaji msaada, ikawa msaada imeshindikana. Mpaka tumelala pale Athi River mpaka asubuhi.
Machakos Police Commander Karanja Murori said his team had swung into action to block access points that may be used as escape routes.
These are ignorant people. They were told to stay at Nairobi, not to come in Machakos. So we are telling them to go back to Nairobi.
In Kisii, residents expressed fear of possible harassment by those implementing the directive at the village level. They also claimed the partial lockdown would adversely affect them by curtailing the means of subsistence and free movement of people.
Sio kitu ya kufurahia. Ni heri tuchukue hii sheria ndogo ndogo kabla tujaenda zile za lockdown. Lockdown ni mbaya zaidi. Wacha avatari hii quarantine na curfew ya saa 1 mpaka saa 11. Quarantine ni siku mzima.
All right, we are now going to be taking a very short break. We are coming back with more. Don't go too far.
Coronavirus COVID-19 is a respiratory virus spreading across the world. The infection is spread from droplets of coughing and sneezing of an infected person, touching or shaking hands or being in contact with contaminated surfaces or objects with the virus. The signs and symptoms are fever, coughing, headache, body ache, difficulty in breathing. The disease can be prevented by regularly washing hands with soap and running water. Avoid close contact with people who have flu-like symptoms. Avoid handshake, hugs, and kissing. Also, protect yourself by covering your mouth or nose using a disposable tissue while coughing or sneezing. If you experience these symptoms and you had traveled or been in contact with a person from a country reporting COVID-19, you should isolate yourself for 14 days. Dial *719# or call 719. This message has been brought to you by the Government of Kenya and its partners.
What has been your greatest challenge as a parent during the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic situation? As we wait for the pandemic to be over at home, COVID-19 has given us an opportunity to reconnect with our children. Join Nakada during Good Morning Kenya Breakfast Show as we discuss positive parenting. Remember, parenting is all about you. Nakada, for a nation free from alcohol and drug abuse.
Next on Corner.
At this moment, Walter is our only hope to clear it up.
Then why didn't Dad send Walter the documents?
I don't know.
You go and see them again. This time...
You're not even listening to me. I said I don't need your advice.
Si punching bag unagonga, atakugonga, jizuie. Lucky, unafikiria unipaka ndogo unapigana nayo? Hey, Jemo, break up! Jemo, nimesema break up!
Welcome back and thank you so much for staying with us. We now move on. As the number of COVID-19 confirmed cases continue to rise in the country, national and county governments have continued to put stringent measures to stem the spread of the pandemic. The Nakuru County government has stepped up its fumigation drive in an exercise that targets all bus terminus and markets in the county in a bid to contain the spread of COVID-19, which has already killed thousands globally.
Nakuru County health officers embarked on a major fumigation exercise in Naivasha town and its suburbs after a similar one in Nakuru town. According to the chief officer in charge of medical services, Dr. Solomon Sirma, the exercise targets areas with high population during the day. Sirma saying that the county was keen to make sure that no resident from the county turned positive to COVID-19.
We're concentrating in areas where there is the highest population during the day, where a place it's always congested. So the chances of somebody who might have contracted the COVID might have passed here, because most of these people are long-distance travelers.
Meanwhile, the Narok County government has received donations from well-wishers to help in combating the spread of COVID-19 in the county. Speaking while receiving the donations, Narok Governor Samuel Ole Tunai said his administration has stepped up measures to contain the spread of coronavirus, which include setting up 10 isolation units comprising of 53 isolation beds. He said his administration has waived parking fees, single business permits and stickers fees for taxis and motorcycles in all towns and urban centers in the county for a period of 3 months. Tunai, however, said open-air markets would resume normal operations under strict regulations of maintaining the necessary hygiene and social distancing.
Wewe mwenyewe ukubali kwamba this is a threat and tukubali ya kwamba whatever measures we are taking is the common good. We don't want to punish anybody. but it's for us to ensure that we are not infected or with this pandemic. And this is what every other county is doing in this country, and this is what the president himself is doing to ensure that we are safe.
Wananchi hawatakuwa wanaingia kwa hiyo soko mfululizo. Watu wa soko tumekubaliana na wao ya kwamba wawe wajipange wao wenyewe, watu kama 10 ama 5 wanaenda wanaingia wananunua wanatoka na wanaenda wakiwa hawasogamani. Kwa hivyo hiyo inaendelea na itafanywa katika sehemu zote za kaunti hii.
Elsewhere, all 9 people who exhibited symptoms of COVID-19 in Isiolo and were isolated at the county referral hospital have tested negative, providing a huge sigh of relief to the county residents. Speaking during a sensitization meeting with the representative of Boda Boda and Matatu operators, butchers, hawkers and members of the civil society on implementation of government directives to contain possible spread of the disease, County CEC in charge of health, Wario Galma, said the county government has ordered for the supply of intensive care unit equipment worth 5 million shillings to help in treatment of victims if required.
Kwa hivyo tukiongea na tukiuliza tunataka hand gloves na tunataka mouth mask, zile zinapatikana ni vichache na hizo hatuwezi kupeana nje kwa sababu wale wataathirika wa kwanza ni wafanyikazi wa afya.
And Busia Sugar Company has donated a total of 135 5-liter cartons of sanitizers, 50 pieces of hand sprays, and 6 cartons of hand gloves to help in fighting coronavirus in the region. These even as Busia County Commissioner Joseph Kanyiri warned parents against being accompanied by children in public places without protective gears. Busia County Chief Officer for Health, Dr. Isaac Omeri, revealed that the county was experiencing shortage of masks and gloves and called on well-wishers to offer support to help fight the disease. And 40 families from Wehoko in Githurai received food donations from Wehoko Resident Association, who also sensitized them how to counter the COVID-19 disease. While expressing gratitude for the donations, the beneficiaries said the supplies will go a long way in assisting them during the pandemic. Finally, Kenya Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers Busia Branch Secretary Moffat Okisai has expressed concern over a decision to convert some schools into isolation centers.
The patients, when they are taken to schools, they can affect also some social fabric in the school. It means the teachers who are in those particular schools will have to be displaced. That's why earlier on pointed we shall be solving a problem by creating another problem, because those very teachers and their families, they are domiciled in those particular schools.
Beatrice Gatonyang-Etich, Channel 1 News.
Thank you, Beatrice, for that report. Now, moving on, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Nurdin Haji, is pushing for stiffer sentencing for Kilifi Deputy Governor Gideon Saburi for what he termed as deliberate spreading of coronavirus after he decided to self-isolate himself after a trip abroad. According to Haji, should there be any fatalities from the cases reported in Kilifi, murder charges will be pressed against the beleaguered Deputy Governor Saburi, was arrested at the Coast General Hospital Sunday after he was reported to have recovered from COVID-19 disease.
In my opinion, an evil intent, and he disregarded his social and legal duty, and as such, we cannot talk about decongesting by not arresting him. I think he'll be arrested. It was a serious crime in our opinion. He has resulted in quite a number of people being infected or suspected to be infected, and he has to face the law. If anybody, including the police or prosecutors or the magistrates, break the law, they will face the law, especially in relation to the COVID pandemic.
Now, away from that matter, the World Health Organization has allayed fears that Africa will be used as a testing ground for coronavirus vaccine. WHO Director General Dr. Tedros Adhanom has condemned the comments by two French doctors who suggested that a vaccine for the coronavirus could be tested in Africa. The assurance coming as the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson spent the night in intensive care unit after his coronavirus symptoms worsened.
The head of the World Health Organization has condemned the comments by two French doctors who suggested a vaccine for coronavirus to be tested in Africa. The doctors' remarks during a TV debate sparked outrage, and they were accused of treating Africans like guinea pigs. One of them later issued an apology. When asked about doctors' suggestion during the World Health Organization's coronavirus briefing, Dr. Tedros became visibly angry, calling it a hangover from a colonial mentality. In the meantime, UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson was admitted to intensive care unit. Johnson was admitted to hospital on Sunday night and had been undergoing tests after suffering persistent coronavirus symptoms for more than 10 days. But the government had earlier said he was in good spirit and still in charge. Meanwhile, US President Donald Trump said late on Monday that he was saddened to hear the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson had been moved to an intensive care unit after his coronavirus symptoms worsened, and that the Americans were praying for his recovery.
And now, with the government announcing a raft of measures aimed at containing the spread of COVID-19, which include a partial lockdown that will affect 4 counties. A section of Kenyans continue to defy laid-down guidelines, and with the government advising on the conduct of the citizenry during the outbreak, we look at the various areas of operation and their potential risks.
Of all ages can be infected by COVID-19. Older people and people with pre-existing medical conditions such as asthma, diabetes and heart disease appear to be more vulnerable to becoming severely ill with the virus. WHO advises people of all ages to take steps to protect themselves from the virus, for example, by following good hand hygiene and good respiratory hygiene. But where can you be more at risk of contracting the disease? Public gatherings, funerals, weddings, street groupings, beaches, open-air markets, gyms, barber shops, salon and massage parlors, hospitals, bars and restaurants are considered high-risk areas. Unauthorized access to isolation and quarantine centers, lifts, bus parks, churches, house parties, ports, factories and sports activities are also high-risk areas. Supermarkets, malls, banking halls, public transport, cash payments, rental apartments, prisons, board meetings, interview panels, motorbikes are regarded as medium-risk areas. People are instead advised to stay at home, embrace online interactions which are considered low risk. You can reach the Ministry of Health through emergency toll-free line 0800-721316 or through 0729471414 and 0732353535 for more information. You can get more information on COVID-19 by calling 719 or dialing *719# on your phone.
Now to other matters. The High Court has ordered Kirinyaga County Assembly to hold a motion relating to the impeachment of Governor Anne Mumbi. This follows an application by the governor arguing that if the impeachment proceedings are allowed to proceed, her constitutional right will be violated. Kirinyaga MCAs were set to discuss the impeachment motion against her tomorrow.
Kirinyaga County Assembly commenced debate on impeachment motion against Governor Anne WAIGURU. The High Court has stopped the process. The High Court agreeing with the defense argument that the coronavirus pandemic would deny her a fair public hearing. In the application, Governor WAIGURU had argued that the timing of the impeachment is suspect, as the said motion has been tabled at a time when she cannot prepare her defense due to inability to access most of the offices due to coronavirus pandemic. According to Justice Weldon Corriel, the Assembly, by failing to take into account the effects of the pandemic on its operations, it had chosen a path that will result in the violation of constitutional rights and principles. Yesterday, 5 members of parliament drawn from Kirinyaga County threw their weight behind the impeachment of area Governor Anne Waiguru. The Jubilee Party lawmakers also told off Party Secretary General Raphael Tuju, whom they accused of interfering with county affairs by reprimanding members of County Assembly behind the motion tabled in the Assembly last week. Kevin Washira, Channel 1 News.
All right, and today also we informed you that the retired Catholic Archbishop Raphael Ndingi Mwana was laid to rest. It is a burial that happened under unique circumstances. Remember, the entire globe is actually battling the spread of coronavirus. In our country, we have reported about 158 cases, so the government has stepped up efforts to contain the spread of the virus. It has affected quite a number of activities, which include this particular burial. We saw just a few people who attended this burial. It was an invite-only ceremony. He was buried at the crypt at the Holy Family Minor Basilica right here in Nairobi. We'll be giving you details about that unique mass that was led by His Eminence Cardinal John Jue in our subsequent news bulletins, and even the message that was read on behalf of President Uhuru Kenyatta today at the burial ceremony. The family and a few politicians and of course bishops attended the burial of the late retired Catholic Archbishop Ndingi Mwana, who has been celebrated or eulogized, rather, depending on how you look at it, as somebody who really gave up himself for the country, and he addressed several issues that were affecting the nation, including moral decay, including matters to do with how the country was being run, and he also took time to address the need of the vulnerable in the society. We'll be understanding more about this story later on. Now, to let you know more, Interpol has reviewed its mode of operation in the wake of the COVID-19 that continues to ravage the globe. Programs such as Operation Simba 2, which seeks to boost the frontline officers' ability to recognize a traveler as a potential terrorist or criminal, will now be executed remotely to adhere to the guidelines set out by member countries.
The COVID-19 pandemic has now had the International Criminal Police Organization, Interpol, in Kenya and the Eastern African region, rotating some of their staff from certain regions and changing their mode of operation.
Let's say 10 hours, we made a decision that we had to withdraw our staff back to Lyon, back to Singapore, as well as back to the participating countries. From that point on, the focus was for supporting the operation remotely. So in a quite short period of time, we managed to extract people to safe locations and continue to provide support remotely to the member countries.
Operation Simba 2, an Interpol-led operation to strengthen counter-terrorism action in the Democratic Republic of Congo, Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda, now having to be conducted remotely.
The number has been significantly affected by the COVID-19 crisis because we experienced a reduced number of passengers coming through and also a reduced number of flights.
The operation has managed to conduct 3 million searches, with 416 hits on stolen and travel documents, as well as 27 hits on persons of interest.
The operation was the initiative of Interpol and was coordinated by counterterrorism experts from Interpol headquarters in Lyon, France. The exercise enabled the exchange of experience between the experts from Interpol and the officers who are on the ground here, and that we find to be very important. And then there was also sharing of vital information among the officers and the use of Interpol policing capabilities, which ensured that the operation was a success.
Nearly 3 million searches were conducted in Interpol's database, resulting in 27 hits on persons of interest and 416 hits on stolen and lost travel documents.
The operation is categorized into country assessment, training of law enforcement officers, briefing of the officers, and sharing of vital information aimed at training and empowering counter-terrorism officers, equipping law enforcement officers, and insulating communities against terrorism. Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Serfine Achieng.
All right, and now traders and motorists have decried the cessation of movement in and out of Nairobi, saying the latest government directive has left them stranded in the capital, as well as cutting off their only means of earning a living. Their concerns coming a day after President Uhuru Kenyatta declared Nairobi, Kilifi, Kwale, and Mombasa counties as COVID-19 hotspots, restricting movements in the 4 counties.
Nimetoka sehemu za Mombasa kuanzia saa 12 asubuhi jana. Tulisafiri mpaka tukafika Nairobi hapa saa 9. Sasa kufika hapo gari likwama kabisa, walisema gari hawezi kuendelea na safari. Sasa tumekuwa hapa na watoto, hatuna la kusema la kufanya. Tumekuwa hapa sasa, tuomba tu waweze kutusaidia.
Sana sana kukula kwangu kunategemea hii barabara. Kwa saizi nafanyia Narok, lakini familia yangu inaishi hapa Nairobi. And by the way, nilikuja kuwasalimia, nirudi niende kazi yangu. Sasa nimefungiwa, sijui watakulaje kwa sababu sijaenda. Mimi ndio gala, mimi ndio kila kitu.
Sisi vijana wengi hapa, kama unavyoona hawa vijana wote, ni watu ambao tunategemea kupata riziki kutokana na mabasi. Sasa hizi tunaambiwa hakuna usafiri, hakuna kupakia abiria, hakuna kuteremsha abiria. Sisi sasa sijui tutafanya nini ndio tupate riziki. Tunaambiwa kwanza lockdown inakuja, hata kabla tufike kwa lockdown. Hizo siku 21, mimi ni mtu ambaye nifanye kazi leo nipate 200 niende kulisha familia yangu leo.
Watu hawana ufahamu wa kutosha kuhusiana na hii virus ya corona COVID-19, na inastahili serikali ichukue jukumu ya kuweza kuwasomesha. Inastahili katika wakati huu ambapo tumetengwa hapa Nairobi, serikali pia ichukue jukumu ya kufanya kuwa kwa bani lazima kila mtu ambaye ako katika eneo ya Nairobi Metropolitan aweze kupimwa, ajulikane kama ako na hizo virusi. Haswa hii area city center inastahili tuwe na mapipa ya kutosha ya maji ya kunawa, maji ya kunywa, na pia tujulikane tunaishi namna gani.
Ile serikali imesema magari isafiri kwenda ushago. Tunaona kama njaa ndio itatua juu corona tuioni. Ni njaa itatua ndio tumeanza kuona sasa.
Kuja ninaenda na sabuni, naenda nimenunua mboga, chakula napata. Sasa hii nimekuja na kilo 2 ya njugu na kuanga hoka. Sijauza hata mtu mmoja, nitauzia nani? Kila mtu ana pesa. Tunategemeanga hao watu wana travel ndio tunawauzia. Yaani maisha yetu imekuwa mwisho.
Mixed reactions there as Kenyans are just adjusting to the new directives issued by the government. We'll be staying on top of that story just to give you pictures and opinions cutting across on what Kenyans have to say and what they're doing in helping in efforts to mitigate the spread of coronavirus. Now to Kayole in Nairobi, as the country struggles to contain the adverse effects of COVID-19 pandemic, a family in Kayole's Tushauriane area is in distress after they were evicted from their rented house over rent arrears. Elizabeth Achieng and her 7 children have spent the last 3 days in the cold after she was left with limited options, having surrendered some of her household items as collateral.
It has been testing times for the family of Elizabeth Achieng, who have been spending their nights in the cold at this open space in the city's Kayole's Tushauriane area. This after the family was forcefully evicted from the rented house by the landlord over rent arrears. The young family now forced to endure cold nights even when the threat of coronavirus in the country is so real. Hired goons are said to have descended on the desperate family, who roughed them up before throwing their belongings out in the cold.
Wakati tulisikizana nitahama, walikuwa wamekuja, nimerudi hivi, ndio huyo ashanitolea vitu nje. Na wakati alikuwa anatoa vitu nje, mimi sikuwa, nilikuwa nimetoka. Akapata watoto, akakomboa watu hapa nje, akaenda kwa nyumba, akatoa watoto nje asubuhi, akawaamsha kwa usingizi, akawatoa nje na wakarusha vitu zangu nje.
Area residents taking issue with the landlord, who they say should have at least delayed evicting the needy family as it sought options to clear their arrears.
Nakuja na GK hapa. Sasa harakati wamekuja na GK, wakipata hata kijana hapa, kijana jaribu kumuongelesha, wacha kufanya hivyo. Wanapata ile nguvu ya kuchapana na huyu mama wakitupa vitu nje.
Ile kitu mimi mwenyewe ni kama jirani yake nimeona mbaya. Hii mama ni kupigwa teke na kafurushwa nje. Mama wakati alikuwa anabeba mtoto kwa mgongo alipigwa teke akaangusha nje. Hiyo sio roho ya Hutu.
The family is now dependent on well-wishers for their daily needs.
Really unfortunate incident there. Now moving on, a top-performing candidate in the 2019 Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education has been devastated by failure to secure a slot at a public university. The 19-year-old Collins Mwangi performed excellently when he scored a B+, becoming one of the top 10 candidates, albeit living with disability. He is concerned that his dream to pursue a Bachelor of Medicine may not come to pass.
Collins Mwangi from Ichuga Estate in Nanyuki Town was puzzled when Education Cabinet Secretary George Magoha announced his name among the top scorers in the 2019 Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education.
One of the students who was on Professor Magoha's list of top 10 most performed candidates living with disabilities. I scored a B+ of 72 points.
His pursuit of education was not easy, given that during the examination at Nanyuki High School, where he was a day scholar, he depended on 2 oxygen tanks to manage his persistent lung failure.
Scoring the B+ was not easy because I was a day scholar in a boarding school. I was in school from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. in the evening, and sometimes I missed school for about 3 months due to my health condition. My parents struggle to cater for my fees and also my medication, as I'm not from a well-off family.
Having put a spirited fight to score a B+, his dream was to become a doctor or a quantity surveyor, but his dream is slowly fading away as he has failed to secure a place at the various public universities of his choice.
Today, I feel heartbroken and put down because when I received the news that I've missed out on all the courses that I'd applied. During application, the courses that I had applied for showed that I had obtained all the minimum requirements.
He now has few options left, such as Bachelor of Science in Community, Health and Development and Bachelor of Science in Computer Science at either Kemu, Egerton or Kenyatta University. He is now appealing to the Ministry of Education to intervene and help him pursue his dreams so that he can treat people suffering from conditions similar to his, even as his mother decries inability to cater for a parallel program as well as his medication.
Wakati huo tulikuwa na furaha, saa hizi ni machozi. Collins hajaweza kufanya kitu, anashinda amelala, analia tu kwa sababu sasa hata anaona kama dream yake imefika mwisho, imekuwa shattered.
Nancy Okware, Channel 1 News.
It's now time for us to explore the latest in the world of business. We begin with news from the National Treasury that the Treasury has halved its economic growth projection for this year's to 3%, warning that the figure may fall further depending on the length of the COVID-19. National Treasury Cabinet Secretary Kuriatani has also added that the Kenya Revenue Authority is set to lose more than 170 billion shillings once the new taxation measures come into force. President Uhuru Kenyatta directed tax cuts to cushion Kenyans from the impact of coronavirus. O'Brien Kimani with more details.
The coronavirus pandemic is likely to have a major impact on the Kenyan economy, not only in the year 2020, but in a couple of years to come. And according to statistical evidence presented by various quarters, the economy is likely to register its weakest growth in more than 15 years, or worse, sink into a painful recession. In the last 4 months, Kenya's economy has been battered by serious headwinds caused by the coronavirus pandemic and the locust invasion that now threatens food security. But it is the COVID-19 pandemic that is likely to have major bearing on the economic growth this year. In the year 2020, Treasury was projecting the economy to expand by 6.5% after expanding by 5.6% in 2019, but this has now been revised.
This year we are looking at a growth of about 6% of GDP, but this will drastically drop to about 3 or even less. But we are going to give a firm figure when we'll have taken it on board, the impact of this maybe in the next 1 month.
Treasury Cabinet Secretary Ukur Yatani says disruption in supply chain for key inputs and tourism, as well as reduced business activity, will negatively impact the country's projected growth. At 3% economic growth, this would be the slowest growth in the last 10 years. Speaking when he received 2 billion shillings recovered from graft, the CS further said the Kenya Revenue Authority will miss its revenue target by a big margin this year due to suppressed economic activities.
The net import of the incentives will result in 272 billion revenue loss for Kenya per year. So if you are looking at 3 months, then you are looking at a figure of about 60 billion.
The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission is targeting a further 8 billion shillings from SLEES that will go towards the fund. Government ministries will have to operate with tighter budgetary allocations this year as the country channels most resources to fight the pandemic. Treasury is expected to table a revised supplementary budget to the National Assembly once it resumes its sittings next week.
We are also now going to reallocate funds from travels, funds from some development projects, so that we can now manage. And moving forward, it's clear that our revenue streams are going to shrink. By how much, we're still studying.
Treasury will also have to shave development vote as it struggles to deal with the crisis. O'Brien Kimani for Channel 1.
Now, across Africa, the European Union will grant Tunisia €250 million in budgetary support to help contain COVID-19 and ride out the economic and social effects of the outbreak. Details of this and more in our Africa Business Roundup.
The support from the EU has been widely welcomed after the EU ambassador in Tunis, Patrice Begamini, said the decision was announced by the European Commissioner for European Neighbourhood Policy and Enlargement through negotiations during a recent telephone conversation with the Tunisian Foreign Affairs Minister Noureddine Erey. The EU also announced that funds earmarked for the health sector support program in Tunisia will be beefed up with an increase from €20 million across 13 governor states to €60 million for all 24 regions in the country. The epidemic situation in Tunisia has been worsening in recent days, with the country recording 574 cases and 22 deaths as of Saturday, with the country looking to step up measures to combat the spread of the virus. Elsewhere, the International Monetary Fund has warned that Zimbabwe needs urgent aid as the coronavirus exacerbates. The impact has led to a food shortage following the worst drought in nearly 4 decades. The Southern African nation needs hundreds of millions of dollars in foreign aid in coming months to fend off a humanitarian crisis that is likely to leave more than half of the population hungry, the Washington-based institution said. An economic crisis marked by a dire shortage of foreign currency and power supply, coupled with the drought, has increased the number of poor people in what was once one of Africa's most industrialized countries. The fund estimates that the economy contracted 8.3% last year. The report was largely compiled before the virus reached Zimbabwe. Meanwhile, about 20 million jobs are at risk in Africa as the continent's economies are projected to shrink this year due to the impact of the coronavirus pandemic, according to an African Union study. So far, Africa accounts for just a fraction of the total cases of the disease, which has infected more than 1 million people worldwide, according to a Reuters tally. But African economies are already facing an impending global economic downturn, plummeting oil and commodity prices, and an imploding tourism sector. Before the onset of the pandemic, continent-wide gross domestic product growth had been projected by the African Development Bank to reach 3.4% this year.
From Africa to the entire globe, global non-profit organizations are calling for suspension of debt payments by developing this year, which could free up to $25 billion to help in combating COVID-19. The call is being spearheaded by UK-based charity Jubilee Debt Campaign and comes a day before a meeting of the G20 group of the world's largest and fastest growing economies. Details of this and other stories in the International News Roundup.
During the coronavirus pandemic, campaigners, among them Oxfam and Action Aid, want debt relief to be applied for all countries in need and most urgently for the poorest countries. Looking more long-term, they want a process to reduce debts to a sustainable level after the crisis. This involves asking the IMF to introduce clear guidelines on when a debt is unsustainable and follow its policy only to lend to countries with unsustainable debts if there is a default or a debt restructuring plan in place. In a blog on Monday, the IMF said the pandemic had pushed the world into a recession. Elsewhere, the cost of petrol in the UK is approaching the £1 a litre for the first time since 2016. By the beginning of April, the cheapest litre on the market was being flogged at just £102.7 via a supermarket. But hopes of it crashing through the £1 barrier remain in some doubt after the oil-producing countries' organization OPEC was reported to be working on restricting production. Any move would depend on Saudi Arabia and Russia ending their price war. The rumor pushed oil prices up more than 20% in one day at the beginning of April. Petrol pump prices remained unaffected by the short-term oil rise, partly because of the ongoing impact of COVID-19 on demand. And a major car insurer, Allstate in the U.S., is refunding millions of dollars to customers stuck at home during the coronavirus lockdowns. Allstate said it would give back $600 million in total to customers. Another insurer, American Family Mutual, is refunding customers with checks totaling $200 million. Both have seen a dramatic drop in accident claims as residents stay at home and off the roads. Allstate will be paying customers back in 2 days. Drivers in quarantine will receive refunds, while most customers will be given a 15% discount on monthly premiums for April and May. The discounts will apply to 18 million customers. Regina Manyara-Gitao reporting for Channel 1 Business.
We now cross over to the world of sports. Now, the Kenya Table Tennis Association has indefinitely postponed its 2020 calendar of activities until the current coronavirus pandemic is under control. The decision was taken by the association to ensure safety of players, officials and fans. While making the announcements, Kenya Table Tennis Association Chairman Andrew Mudibo said the association will continue to monitor the situation on a daily basis, encouraging players to stay at home but also carry out light training to keep fit. KTTA was hoping to hold a revamped Kenya Open this year by inviting top-rated players in the world after successfully hosting ITTF Africa Top 16 Cup in 2018. The association is, however, hopeful that the global pandemic will be contained soon. Now, Formula One Chief Executive Officer Chase Carey is to take a significant but undisclosed pay cut, with around half of F1's 500 staff placed on furlough. 3 F1 teams, Williams, Racing Point and McLaren, have already put sections of their workforce on temporary leave, with each of their drivers taking a pay cut.
Formula One senior management and executives, including Managing Director of Motorsports and Technical Director Ross Brown, are to take a 20% pay cut for a period of 2 months.